Have you ever wondered why everyone in comment threads sounds so certain about who Lilith is? In this episode, we follow the trail from ancient fragments and later folklore until you can see exactly how the modern myth was built. Welcome to Legends Reborn. Owl, serpent, vampire, demon queen. 4 labels that surface again and again in modern retellings. When Lilith is discussed online, they often sound completely sure of who she was and what she became. Tonight, we dive into the modern myths around her, covering the most common versions so you can shape your own opinion of who Lilith is. If you want the full story from her earliest roots, you can also watch the complete deep dive that's already on the channel. But with no further ado, take a seat and settle in. So let's begin. Before we go any deeper, I want to set one boundary so the story doesn't start sliding under our feet. In later Jewish folklore, Lilith is remembered as Adam's first partner, the one who refuses submission and leaves. Most of what people call her online, the demon queen or the so-called vampire mother, even the idea that she changes shape in the night, spreads outward in later layers, not in Genesis itself. With that in mind, let's follow the first seed, a single word that refuses to sit still. In the book of Isaiah, there's a vision of ruined land, where the world feels emptied out and strange creatures move in the dark. Inside that passage, Isaiah 34:14, there's a rare term that turns into a launch point. Some translations treat it like an animal of the night, something like an owl or a night bird. Others translate it as a night creature, and a few keep it closer to a name, written as Lilith. Every time the wording shifts, the meaning shifts with it, and that's all it takes for a legend to begin. This is the ancient text layer, and it's rough around the edges because languages don't line up neatly across time. But when translators don't agree, the gap feels like an invitation. A comment thread turns into a courtroom, and someone arrives with a screenshot as proof. If the screenshot says Lilith, then Lilith is treated as biblical. If it says night creature, then she turns into a shadow you can pour any fear into. And if it uses something dramatic, like the old word vampires or night vampire, then the story can start to sound settled, even when it isn't. So this is your first clue for how modern Lilith gets built. Not from one clean sentence that everyone shares, but from an uncertain word that travels through different hands and different languages. The text gives you a ruined landscape and the feeling of night settling in, with one strange term sitting in the middle of it. Everything else is what people do with that uncertainty. Then we reach the second seed, the one that looks like evidence even before you read a single line. In posts, you'll see a Mesopotamian relief shared again and again, often with only 2 words under it: Lilith, proof. It's the famous Queen of the Night plaque, also known as the Burney relief. A winged figure stands upright, her feet ending in talons, owls at her sides, lions beneath her. It's a powerful image, and you can understand why people stop scrolling when they see it. It looks like a night spirit made solid, like the kind of being Isaiah hints at, given a body and a stare. But here's the catch, and it matters for everything that comes next. The artifact is real, yet the label isn't settled. Different writers have linked it to different figures, and the identification is debated. That doesn't mean the image is wrong. It means the certainty around it is doing extra work. A real object meets an unstable name, and then the internet steps in to finish the sentence. The picture doesn't speak, so people speak for it, and the louder the claim, the more it can feel like history itself has spoken. So we have a disputed word in scripture, and we have a debated image from the ancient world. That's already enough for myth to ignite. But the detail that keeps coming back, the Red Sea and the angel chase, along with the fear around childbirth, doesn't begin in Isaiah or in Mesopotamia. It rises in a later folkloric text called the Alphabet of Ben Sira, a story that serves as an engine for the Lilith most viewers recognize today. In that tale, Lilith is placed beside Adam as an equal, and the conflict turns intimate. She refuses a role where she must be beneath him, and when the argument won't end, she speaks the divine name and leaves. The story doesn't stop at her departure. Adam complains, and 3 angels are sent after her. Their names are usually given as Sinoi, Sansonoi, and Samangeloth. They find her by the sea, often rendered as the Red Sea, and they demand she return. When she refuses, the threats begin. In this layer of the tradition, the punishment is described as the loss of her children, day after day. Then comes the detail that shaped real practice. Lilith swears that if she sees the angels' names or their images on an amulet, she will have no power over the infant. That's a very different kind of story than the one people summarize in a single angry sentence online. It reads like folklore with a purpose. It tries to explain sudden loss in a time when people had few answers, and it creates a ritual that feels like doing something in the face of fear. A name functions as a shield. An amulet turns into a quiet promise hung near a cradle, not because everyone agreed on the belief behind it, but because the night felt dangerous, and parents wanted anything that might hold it back. And once you see that, the Red Sea detail shifts. In the text, it's simply where the chase ends. In later retellings, it's treated as something larger, and that's where the comment section versions begin. This is where the comment section starts saying she crossed into a den of demons, or slipped beyond the edge of Eden into hell, or returned wearing other forms. You'll see the owl appear again. The Bernie relief is always waiting in the background. You'll see the serpent appear too. It's a clean way to connect her to Eden without needing a source that actually says it. Those are not ancient agreements. They're later moves, made to intensify the story and make it feel complete. So as we move forward, keep the layers apart, just for a moment. Isaiah gives us the language of ruin and a night being that translators can't quite pin down. The relief adds an image the modern world loves to attach to her, and Ben Sira gives us the chase to the sea, along with the angel names and the amulet oath that echoes through later folklore. And in the next part, we step into the darker architecture that comes after this, where mysticism and modern occult systems build diagrams and whole maps around Lilith's name, until a story people repeat starts to look like an empire. We left Lilith at the Red Sea, with the angels' names pressed into the story like a seal. In modern retellings, that detail rarely stays small for long. The moment you give a figure a place to flee to, the next question is what that place truly was, and what she became after she reached it. In one of the most shared versions, the Red Sea is more than a coastline. It's described as a boundary line, the edge of the human world, where Lilith slips out of reach and into something darker. Some tellings picture it as a hidden domain that gathers spirits the way the sea gathers wreckage. Others describe it in simpler terms, saying only that she makes her home there, beyond Eden, beyond return. The language changes, but the direction is the same. She doesn't go back. The sea turns into the place where the story stops being a dispute between two people and starts turning into a legend about the night. That same version usually keeps the confrontation with the angels close to the surface. The names appear again and again in posts and captions, those three angel names from the tale. In the retelling, they reach her by the water and demand she return to Adam. Lilith refuses, and the story shifts into an oath that many people repeat as if it's the heart of the myth. If she sees the angels' names, sometimes written, at times shown as signs, she will not approach that child. This is why modern posts often linger on the amulet detail, describing small charms meant to be hung near a crib, or placed close to a mother in the days after birth, as a kind of shield against what comes in the dark. Another piece that shows up in the same cluster of tellings is the punishment. Many versions say that after Lilith refuses to return, a number of her own children are taken from her each day. Some posts link that loss to the danger she then represents, saying she strikes back by targeting human infants, especially in the earliest days of life. In that telling, the amulet serves as the single rule that can stop her, and the Red Sea turns into the place where the warning takes its permanent shape. From here, the Red Sea begins to widen into a kind of entrance. The shoreline turns into a threshold, and the story starts adding names that place Lilith inside a darker court. Samael is one of the most common. In some retellings, he is presented as a partner she joins after leaving Eden, while other posts treat him more like a ruler connected to the realm she enters. You'll also see Asmodeus mentioned, sometimes in a similar role, sometimes as another figure tied to her in later tradition. The details don't always match from source to source, but the tone is consistent. Lilith is no longer only a runaway. She's described as someone with rank, someone with power, someone whose name belongs beside other names that carry fear. Once those links appear, another theme becomes louder in the online story: the night visitations. In many retellings, Lilith is said to come to men in their sleep. The language shifts between spirit, demon, and succubus, depending on who is telling it, and the shape of the scene changes as well. Sometimes it's written like a warning about desire and shame. Sometimes it's told like a supernatural origin story, where seed is taken from the dream world and used to produce spirit children, often called the Lilim. In these tellings, sleep becomes a doorway, and Lilith becomes the figure who knows how to step through it. From there, the modern myths often move into occult diagrams, because charts are easy to share, and they feel like a key. If you've spent time in those spaces, you've probably seen Lilith placed on Qliphoth maps, often linked with the moon, and with a sphere called Gamaliel. In the posts that use this framework, Gamaliel is described as a realm of night visions, shifting images, and dream pressure, where the mind becomes its own landscape. Lilith is then placed near the center of that landscape, described as a ruler in that region, or as a force that opens the gate into it. The result reads like a guide to an unseen world, the kind of thing you can screenshot and keep. As these diagrams circulate, certain images start attaching themselves to Lilith so tightly that they feel inevitable. The owl appears again, night in its face and silence in its wings. Wings follow for the same reason, movement between worlds without leaving a trail. Before long, the serpent begins to follow her name as well, tying her back to Eden with a single symbol, even when the post doesn't stop to explain the bridge. That's the doorway into one of the most repeated claims online, that Lilith was the serpent in the garden. In these retellings, the story is told like a loop closing. Lilith doesn't simply leave Eden and vanish. She stays near it, watching, waiting, and then returns in another form. Some posts describe her as the voice behind the temptation, speaking through the serpent. Others present it as a direct identity, saying Lilith and the serpent are the same being, seen under different faces. These versions often lean on the mood more than the source, focusing on the idea of return, disguise, and unfinished conflict, because it makes the Eden story feel tied to everything that comes after. And then there's the version that pushes her even further into modern dark mythology, the one where Lilith is framed as the mother of vampires. You'll see this told in more than one way across modern retellings. Sometimes it's written as ancient lore, offered with the same confidence as scripture. Other times it's connected to modern settings like World of Darkness, where Lilith is written as a powerful origin figure tied to early vampire bloodlines. In those tellings, she is framed as someone who offers knowledge to the outcast, or a presence close to the beginning of a new, hungry kind of life. The story fits neatly beside exile and night, so it spreads easily, even when different posts leave out where the version comes from. From there, the final image appears again and again, Lilith as a queen. In some posts, she is called the Queen of Demons. In others, she is named the Queen of Hell. In those versions, she sits behind a shadowed throne, ruling a realm that feels absolute. The details around that throne shift depending on the telling. In some versions, the Red Sea is described as the gate that led her there. In others, the occult map is treated like a blueprint of her domain. And in still others, Eden is kept as the first wound that explains everything else. By the end of this trail, it makes sense why people can sound so certain in comment threads. Each version is usually told as a complete story on its own, with its own starting point and its own logic, and it's easy to mistake that completeness for a single, unbroken history. One person begins with the amulet and the chase to the sea. Another begins with the serpent and the garden. Someone else begins with the moon and the dream realm. And when those stories travel far enough, they start living side by side under one name. So, if Lilith's name shows up on your screen, what you're often seeing is not one settled legend, but a collection of modern myths and older traditions that keep borrowing from each other. Once you notice that, you can follow each version as it's told, without rushing to declare one final answer. Same name, different functions, depending on which layer you're reading. This is Legends Reborn, where the past still breathes. Thank you for watching, and for staying with me all the way to the end. I know these stories can be heavy, so it means a lot that you chose to spend your time here. If you want more episodes like this, you can subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. And if this story stayed with you, leave a comment. Tell me what surprised you, or what still feels unclear. Suggest another forgotten figure for a future episode, and we'll decide which door to open next. Thank you for being here. Until the next story.